Got investors like Ricky Gervais, Dave the rapper, the Sidemen, Jess Glynn. You know, I think the sustainability thing for us was super important. We were 3 months from going bankrupt in 2018. And I just thought I could just drink every day for the rest of my life, basically. It got bad. Like, by the time I was 15, I was drinking like 500ml bottles a day of vodka. You've got to just keep pounding away. Because what I've realised is that the copycats are just, they're here. They're here and they're coming for you. Big companies and big people have completely just gone out of their way to remove can of water from certain places. Like, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
Josh, how are you, mate?
I'm very good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Well, look, thanks for coming down. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
How's the week going? We're sat on a Friday, so how's the week been?
How's the week been? Yeah, it's been good, busy. Been going up and down London quite a bit, having meetings.
Yeah.
It's weird because I went through this period where when we first started the brand, I would literally be, and there was no Zoom. So I was literally like traveling the country, and then Zoom came in, and then I tried to not do that as much.
Yeah.
And then now I'm finding myself, I actually prefer face-to-face meetings again. I think I'm trying to get a bit back into, like, you know, that early reality where it wasn't just sort of screen to screen.
I mean, I know the feeling. I know exactly the feeling. But look, we're going to talk a lot about one of the businesses you founded, which is CanO Water, which is super exciting.
Thank you.
But I guess before all of that, I want to get a bit of context behind you.
Yeah.
So tell me about the early years and tell me what you were really focused on becoming when you were a little bit younger.
I didn't really know what my purpose was, to be honest with you. You know, I didn't have much sort of sense of belief in myself or much purpose. And I think that question's always difficult because I was lost for many, many years. Suffered severely with ADHD from a very young age at 11, at a time where no one knew what ADHD was. And it was like, you know, this was at a time where people, if you had ADHD, you were a little bit written off at school because not a lot of people had it. And if you did have it, it was sort of like you were that class clown, naughty kid who, you know, who has a problem. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't really know what my purpose was in life. I think that when I got into my teens, I started to want to do good and help people, but I still, at this, you know, everyone at school had a bit more of they were sort of molding into something where some people, it might have been like a salesy thing or like, you know, a lot of my mates went into like recruitment and property and you know, people went to uni for something that, you know, that they enjoyed, whether it be like business or, you know, I don't know, whatever it was. For me, it was like, I loved art. I love music. One thing that I was very passionate about was not going into something that I didn't enjoy, because with someone with ADHD, I'll just lose interest in 5 minutes. So I sort of molded into a little bit more of I'm just going to go with the flow. And started DJing at a very young age, at like 11, 12 years old.
Really?
My dad bought me my first pair of decks.
Nice.
As like, I think he was like, we need to find a hobby for this guy. And I just fell in love with trying to make music blend in with each other. So I sort of naturally sort of went into that. But as I said, like, I didn't really have much purpose or know what I was going to go into.
Yeah. Did you feel pretty lost at that point?
So lost.
Yeah.
My whole childhood was lost, to be honest with you. Yeah.
And why was that? Because obviously you mentioned ADHD, and I was exactly this. I've kind of got a similar narrative.
Yeah.
Loads of weird misdiagnosis when you're a kid. You got it, you don't have it. It was like, what's going on? And again, it was just so unknown at the time. And now it's much bigger, particularly in the last couple of years. It's kind of grown. But that, when you're in that young age, when you've kind of been told there's something wrong with you, and then also you don't know what you want to do. Yeah. It's not the best place to be in, right?
It's not. And also, like, back then, we're in I feel like now we're in a lot more accepted times where, like, being creative and being a bit different is celebrated. Yeah. Whereas back then, it's like, well, you can't do that. You can't do this. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And my approach has always been like, I don't really care. I'm just going to do it. Yeah. So like, DJing for me took me to loads of incredible places, and I DJ'd in some of the, you know, the most incredible clubs in the world, and for some absolutely incredible people, and art as well. Like I'm a massive art person, and I sort of am obsessed with sort of like all different types of, like, I was mainly obsessed with like sort of like graffiti and like sort of like typography, and I sort of went down that route, which sort of it didn't give me, it gave me a hobby. It didn't give me like a career path. But what it did do is it gave me a sense of sort of like something that I enjoyed doing. So whereas a lot of people were focusing on their careers, I was just focusing on like, this is what I personally enjoy, and how can I go from, like, my mind works in an incredible way, but also an absolutely horrible way, where I could be up all night just being anxious or sort of, you know, just worried about stuff. But when I'm listening to music, or when I'm, you know, for me, like, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm doing like a mad thing, like an ice bath or something, my mind just goes elsewhere, which is what I need. So I was focusing on myself.
Do you think that's like a distraction thing?
Yeah, I do, but it is a distraction thing. But like, you know, now it is also like a bit of a dopamine thing. So it's like, I need to find these fixes to help me think, if that makes sense. So I
find the clarity in the chaos, if that makes sense.
Exactly. I find it, if I'm just sitting in a room. So as a kid, I'll give you an example. When I was in a classroom, I couldn't listen to anything. Give me a pen and paper, and I'm drawing and I'm graffitiing or I'm doing something creative. I'm there, and I can actually hear both. But I need to do so. Like, even in meetings now, it might look rude and I'm drawing, but I'm actually listening. It's the way that my mind works. So it's the same with music. When I'm listening to music, I can think. When I'm drawing, I can think. When I'm doing creative things, I can think. When I'm not, I find it really, really difficult to listen and to think.
Again, super similar, so I can resonate with you. But like, I think the one thing I always think about is like, I often find myself very overloaded in terms of like, there's so much going on up there. So like, I'm massively into my cycling. If I can cycle for like 2 hours, I have the most clarity ever, and 100%. I do my best, like, thinking about the business, thinking about like connection, thinking about relationship, whatever it might be. Like, that's where I find the clarity. But it's interesting what you're saying about, because a lot of people are like, that's creative expression. I think it's more like distraction and like overload release, if that makes sense. Like,
it is a release thing.
It feels like
100%. I mean, before I had like things like the gym, I didn't have a release, and it was, you know, with someone with ADHD, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. Listen, what I've, you know, working now is a release for me, but it also can be a really dangerous release, you know, and it's like, it's that burnout is really, really dangerous. And it's the word that I've always tried to do, and the thing that I've always tried to do, which I think is very, very hard, but I have prioritized it and I do it well now, is balance. But I had no balance as a kid at all.
Were you kind of all in on anything you're doing?
All in on everything, and I ended up becoming like, I would just mess everything up. You know, I want to be a music producer. I put my whole life into it, and like, you know, that there's this common theme of people with ADHD, that they fixate on something but they never finish a task. That was me. Like, stupid shit. Like, I love the sax as an instrument. I wanted to become the world's best sax player. I hadn't even fucking bought a sax yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is me to a T. Like, all the gear, no idea. I would always be that guy. And the things that I have always sort of kept, like DJing, and, you know, things like CanO, it's like, when I'm so interested in it, I'm the best at it. Because I fixate at it, and I'm like completely and utterly obsessed with making it work and being the best at it. Like, DJing just started as a hobby, and I ended up just becoming like an absolutely phenomenal DJ. It's one of the things in life that I know that I'm at a level where I'm seriously good at it, but then there's other things I'm just seriously not good at. And it's also about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. I never really understood that as a kid. I was just focused on my weaknesses.
With your ADHD, have you ever tried brown noise?
No, I haven't.
Do you know what that is?
It's a noise.
It's literally like static.
But no, I haven't. I think I've tried white noise, but I should try.
They're
brown
very
noise.
similar.
Fine.
So I walk around the office with headphones in,
Just
with
listen to brown noise,
and everyone's like,
yeah, what
the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But I find like this really weird, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and there's like got to be this like kind of setup that works. But the one thing I was going to ask you about is like your coping mechanisms. Not that you need to cope with what you have, but just like how you work through it when you're younger. But yeah, mine was brown noise, which is weird. And it's just in your ears, and it sounds horrible when you start.
Yeah.
You get to this kind of like flow state, and I think a lot of people are talking about flow states at the moment, like how you can work and be productive and efficient and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I found that's just done weird things for me. But what have yours been? You know, especially in your younger years, like how did you get where you are now?
It's a weird one. So for me, my coping mechanisms before I had like my hobbies was drink and drugs, in all honesty. Like I sort of, in order to get my head to stop going absolutely mental, the only way out was basically to block it through using, and that was something that, you know, from the ages of sort of 12 to 15, I basically I couldn't go through a day without being drunk or high, basically, from 12 to 15. And I think that it was like my mind at such a young age was so just like it was like something from like a Marvel movie, like hearing thousands of voices in your head saying like, this is wrong, why don't you try it? And it was so much that when I had my first ever drink at the age of 12, it sort of blocked it out.
Was that completely like innocent in that sense? First drink?
Yeah, completely innocent. Just sort of like, you know, with a few mates, trying drink, and it just blocked it. And I was going through a lot of like problems in my family life with people getting ill and like a lot of trauma and a lot of anger as well. And drinking just masked that completely. And, you know, my first drink, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. You know, this is incredible. Like, I don't feel this void anymore. And I was also I was very sociable, but I was also very shy. It's weird. It's like, it sounds like they don't mix, but actually, like, I wanted everyone to be my best friend, but I didn't want to be myself. I wanted everyone to see this version of me that wasn't me. It wasn't real. So I basically would drink and become the life of the party, which ended up not becoming the life of the party by the end of it. But it was turning me into someone that I thought I should be. And how amazing, like, it removed all my problems when I did it. And I could be this person that everyone wanted to be around because I was the life and soul of the party. But really what it was doing is it was basically it was blocking out the growth of, like, you know, like we all make mistakes. We all learn. We all have to go through life, you know, and what I was doing, I was like, nah, don't want to go through life. I just want to basically just block it out. Like, have you ever seen, there's an Adam Sandler film, Click, where he's got a remote basically, and he basically can just like pause and forward. I basically just wanted to just pause life or try and sort of change the agenda. And I just thought I could just drink every day for the rest of my life basically, and it didn't end well.
Obviously, like, you know, keen to ask you a few more questions on that, but addiction and ADHD are quite similarly linked.
They are very, very, they're on the same wave.
Yeah. So I still drink today, but I've never tried drugs in my life, which I'm quite happy about, because I'm actually afraid of being addicted. Of course. I have this weird thing where, like, if I have a meal that I like CanO water, I had one today, I'll have one for 4 days. I genuinely will. I had this weird thing where I become obsessive about stuff. It's like, if I like a meal, I'll just have that for 5 days straight until I change. And that was always really, like, younger ages, I was really scared of it. It's like, if I go near it, I know 100% I'm going to be diving into that. I guess you had no time to discover that for you. Right?
Well, it's funny. I was very lucky. This won't sound lucky, but I unfortunately had a family member pass away from addiction, from drugs. So I was sort of drilled in at a young age, don't do drugs. Right. Hence why I sort of focused very heavily on alcohol. Right. But yeah, like I'll be honest with you, I didn't have the awareness of what even addiction was. You know, it wasn't around me at a young age. I actually didn't know too much about my family history, where I think that addiction is hereditary. I really do. You know, I have a lot of addiction in my family, and I just, as you said, I just went in innocently, and it basically, ADHD and addiction, the reason they are like, it's we as people with ADHD, we hate ourselves in different ways. And if you don't see the superpowers in ADHD, a lot of people, that dopamine that you might get from the gym or music or watching a film or being creative, you get from alcohol or from drugs. So you basically have it and you're like, oh my God, my mind isn't, you know, like a lot of ADHD medication is basically like, it's like cocaine.
Yeah. Rebalancing chemistry, right?
Exactly. So
you just said, sorry to interrupt you, but you just said something there about hating parts of yourself. At 12 years old, what parts of yourself did you hate? I just
wasn't happy. I was just a miserable kid, and I wanted everyone to love me, but I hated me.
Yeah.
You know, I really, really, really hated me. And I think that it's taken me so many years to love myself, but I just, it was weird. I grew up too fast.
Okay.
As a kid.
I guess you must have had to with what's going on.
Exactly.
Naturally, if you're aware of that stuff at that age, you start growing up quite quickly.
100%. And I think that I hyperfix on anything.
Yeah.
And when you hyperfixate on things, I was hyperfixating on myself. Whereas most 12-year-old kids are just getting on with their life. And they're not focusing on like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I was just fixated on what was wrong with me. So I was, instead of hyperfixating on creative stuff, I was fixating on me. So I was worried about me. I was worried about, you know, at 12 years old, I wasn't sleeping because I was so worried about my future. I was worried about what, you know, where everyone else is good at something, like, what am I good at? I'm not good at anything. And I didn't see, you know, I didn't see the benefits of just me as a person, because at that age, I didn't see the superpowers, you know, where now I see them. You know, now I'm constantly being told by people, or like, you know, my parents who for my whole childhood were worried about whether I'd be alive or in prison, you know. Now they're like, how is this person the same person that was? And I think that's just through navigating the positives and of ADHD, and also being aware of the negatives. And also there's positives of addiction as well, you know, massive positives of addiction. But it takes
on a knife edge,
it takes going through huge amounts of trauma and getting over these hurdles to realize what they are. And it's painful, like seriously painful. And I feel like I had to go through 10 years of hell in order to grow and be where I am today.
When you say 10 years, is that so from 12 to about 22?
Yeah. Right. I started CanO at 22, around there. But those years were just the darkest years of my life, where, you know, I saw horrible things and had to sort of endure like a lot of horrible sort of, like, some of it was just, you know, family stuff and illnesses within family members that you just that just happens. And other things were just like mental blocks and painful things that I just had to learn from, really. But I wouldn't be where I am today without those, because I had to navigate myself through sort of like, I think it was David Goggins or someone in a podcast was talking about basically how they went through so much trauma that they learned that they got stronger through that trauma. And like, that's sort of what happened to me in the end, is I sort of, when something would happen, and I had a traumatic experience where my younger brother got diagnosed with cancer when he was 12, and we lived in Great Ormond Street for a year, and it was horrible. He's all right now, thank God.
How old are you at this time?
I was, I think, 20 or something like that.
You were clean at that point?
Yeah, I was clean.
Right.
Which is one of my proudest moments of being clean, because that's a moment where, like, all you want to do is just remove every bit of, you know, reality possible. But, like, I had to go through that in order to sort of learn about me. And if I'd gone through that using, I wouldn't have learned but like going through it sober, okay, is a gift because you learn about you. And it's funny, the resilience that I built then, I use in business now. It's like this pain inside my body. It's like nothing's worse than that.
I was going to say, I've gone through some stuff as we all have. And kind of think, well, nothing can really affect me now.
Exactly.
You know, what's
exactly
happen? How bad? So you were using quite a lot from 12 to 15. How bad did it get?
It got bad. Like by the time I was 15, I was drinking like 500ml bottles a day of vodka at school.
1.5 liters of vodka
a day. And I was out of it, out of control. I was.
Did people know?
People close to me knew.
Right.
Yeah.
But you become very good at hiding it. Right?
Very good at hiding it. But I went from being the life and soul of the party to being this person that everyone was petrified of.
In what way?
In the way of like violent, angry, just like I would just walk into a party and just fall over and just like I'll be asleep on the floor. Like it got to a point where I'd wake up in high streets or in like just
at 15.
Yeah, at 15. It was out of control.
Yeah.
And I hated myself. I didn't want to be this person. Like if you met me, you'd love me. I was a nice person. And I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I just was so low and I hated myself. So I just...
Where did the drugs come into it?
It was only really like smoking weed, basically.
Right.
And but I was lucky because if I'd gone into hardcore drugs, I genuinely believe I wouldn't be here today. But because a family member of mine had passed, I knew that I was scared, similar to what you said, like scared.
Yeah.
And at 15, it was every day. I would do anything to get drunk. You know, I'm ashamed to say some of the things that I did to get drunk, but that's where my addiction took me.
Yeah.
And you know, I was a full blown alcoholic at 15, and I woke up one day. It was in July 2006 in a rehab, basically about 2.5 hours from home.
You don't know how you got that?
15 years old, can't really remember how I got there. I was just paralytic, out cold, with bruises all over my body and petrified, like literally like this every ounce of this kid that had this mask on of trying to cover up what, you know, the real me was. The real me was out, you know, like crying, broken, didn't know what to do in my life. And that was the first time ever where it was sort of like, this is me, you know, this is the real me. And you know, when you're in rehab and you're around, and there was only one rehab in the country that would take like people of my age at the time.
I was going to say, because
like,
how does
they exactly, like they wouldn't. So I was mixed in there with, you know, heroin addicts, coke addicts, you know, people that had done terrible things that needed custodial sentences cut down for doing, you know, like terrible things. So it was really, really tough, but it was reality.
Were you ready to get rid of the addiction at that point?
I don't think I was, but by the end I was, because what I saw and what I was around, I don't believe any 15-year-old should see. Right. And, you know, still to this day, you know, I have flashbacks, and I wouldn't say nightmares, but a day doesn't go by where I don't think about it. And it was mainly just, you know, I built good connections in there with people, good people who were gripped with addiction, and most of them had died or like lost, you know, or had relapsed. So actually, like, I think, you know, one thing that everyone would say to me was like, this is a gift. You are gifted to get in at this age. And
when you were in the rehab?
When I was in the rehab.
God, that's quite heavy.
Heavy, you know, like stay clean. Like, please stay clean.
Yeah.
And I would be in there with people that had lost body parts from injecting heroin into themselves, you know, and I would see that and would have visions of me being that person if I don't sort my life out. So really my whole first time in rehab, which was like 2 months, was basically just fear-based. I was in there for my parents, and it was fear-based. Did I believe that I could stay clean forever? Probably not. I didn't really know about the world of addiction either. I learned it all in there.
You don't know much about the world at this point as well. Like,
100%. And also, I'd used the past 3 years masking all my pain. Like, I was like withdrawing, not really through like the drink, but withdrawing on, like, I hadn't dealt with life on life's terms at this point. So I was dealing with all of this sober. And this happens a lot with addiction. I got so angry.
Yeah.
Like I moved to anger because I was like, why can't I? Why me? Why me? Why is it always me? Everything's me. Everything's me. And yeah, basically I came out of there very, very, very angry. And for the next few years, I wasn't really, I would say that I was a bit of a shell, in all honesty. I started a business at 19 years old. But before that, from like 15 to 19,
did you go back to school? Or like,
I went back to school. Right. I was in and out of school, in all honesty. I did my GCSEs. How did they go? Do you know what? They actually, for what I missed, they actually went well.
Yeah.
I excelled in art because it was a passion, and I loved art. And it's something that, you know, I say to a lot of people with ADHD, like, find your passion. Find it, because that will save your life. It really, really will. If you find something that you love, and really for the next 3 years, I was at school, but I was like, sort of like, in all honesty, I was kicked out of things, and I just wasn't really. I was just this angry person.
Did you ever relapse?
So at 19, I relapsed. And I basically relapsed. I didn't relapse on drink. I relapsed on laughing gas, basically, which was like a horrendous relapse where I should have seen it coming, because I was...
Was that, when you say relapse, someone's laughing gas, at the time, 19, you know, that was probably not seen as something hardcore.
It really wasn't.
Or that addictive.
It really wasn't.
The dangerous thing about it.
It's very good that laughing gas has been banned, because it's one of those addictions that I got completely and utterly obsessed with laughing gas, and I wasn't looking at it as a relapse because it wasn't a drug.
Yes.
So I was using it for about 6 months, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, and it got to a point where, you know, I just got so addicted. I couldn't go through a day without using laughing gas. I was using it like seriously addictively,
like multiple times a day.
Yeah. I mean, I ended up doing like 600 laughing gas in one night. Yeah,
600 of the canisters.
Yeah,
in a night.
Yeah, it was horrendous.
But surely your brain and your body.
Yeah, I'm genuinely lucky to be here. Like
600 canisters.
Yeah,
in 24 hours.
Yeah, it was really, really bad, and I woke up. I don't know how long I was out for, but I woke up and just begged my parents to put me back into rehab. I begged them. Which was really tough. Like,
so you weren't drinking at this point?
I wasn't drinking.
Just purely.
I was like 4 years clean, and I'd been going to meetings, AA meetings, which for me has saved my whole entire life.
Yeah.
But I wasn't listening to anyone. So people were telling me how to get clean, but I was doing the thing that I would always do. Like, I know best, knowing that I didn't know best. But this like stubborn idiot, basically. And it all came to a head. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a purpose. I was in a really, really bad way. Like, things were happening. Unfortunately, like, my mum got diagnosed with cancer. My grandma got diagnosed with cancer. My mum also was an addict as well, and an alcoholic, and that was all going on. That was all going on after me being in rehab. So everything, like watching her being the way that she was, and it was just horrendous, and everything was basically just shit. And because I had no purpose and no sense of belief in myself, I just looked at it, I just don't want to be here anymore. I was suicidal. I was angry. I just had no purpose. And after the laughing gas situation, I basically just was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. Like, I hate my life. There's only two ways out here. Either I die because I don't want to be here, or I basically just sort my fucking shit out, basically, and I have to start believing in myself.
Was this a conversation you were having with yourself?
With myself.
Was this in rehab?
In rehab. And I remember being in rehab in the one place that I never wanted to be ever again. And I remember myself in there, like, I was broken. Like, I was literally broken, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't deal with life. And you know, that was the turning point of my life, really.
What made you go in the right direction?
Just sort of what made me go in the right direction, like,
because it seems like that was the lowest point.
It was that was like the lowest point. It really was. But it was just like, I don't know what it was. It was something in my mind, like a bit of a light bulb of like, I can do this, and no one can stop me, but I need to get out of this rut. And like, my dad came from nothing. Like, my dad literally like lived in a council estate, came from nothing, and gave me and my family everything. And he always worked so hard. And I watched him do it. And I've always been a hard worker, but I just knew that the creative is, I don't know what it was, but I just knew that I wanted to do something creative, and I wanted to do something different. And I love music, and I'm a DJ, and I'm DJing all over the country. And I basically just sort of came out of rehab.
DJing at this point?
I was DJing at this point.
Yeah.
I was DJing at this point. And cut long story short, I started a company with a friend of mine, and it was an events company, an under 18s events company. It was called High Frequency. It was in the UK. It was like a dubstep, drum and bass, grime under 18s event.
Yeah.
And this was the first time ever where I was sort of like excited for my future.
Were you a bit nervous at this point? And the reason why I asked that is because we're going into a scene where you spent 7 years battling environment, substances and everything like that. You're going straight back into a scene where that is everywhere.
100%.
You're not going on to make water just yet.
Yeah, 100%.
Was that quite a... Were you nervous?
I wasn't nervous. I knew it was there. But I was so in love with the scene.
Yeah.
Okay. So in love with the scene. Like, I used to go to Fabric every week, stone cold sober. And it sounds so weird because dubstep is really not a genre that I really listen to now. But when I first ever heard the first dubstep song, I remember just thinking, like, this is me. Like, I'm obsessed with this. And I engulfed myself into this scene because I loved how it was very like underground and very urban. I loved how it had never really been done before, and it was very, and this goes on in my life really with CanO and everything. I loved the fact that no one was doing anything in it, and I sort of become obsessed with those things because it's like, wow, this is new. Like, it's really weird. I love music, but I can't hear the same song over and over and over again. I fixate on it, then I never want to hear it again. I always want to hear new shit. Like, my friends are like, can we just hear like old bangers? And I'm like, no, I want to show you new. I'm obsessed with new things. I am completely and utterly obsessed in culture and trends and things like that, whether it be movies or music or art. So I sort of, with this business, I wanted to do things that no one had ever really done before, and no one was really doing it in that market. And this was when the grime scene was sort of, hadn't really been. It was popular, but mainly not really like popular.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like all up and coming. So I engulfed myself in that, and I was clean. And I knew that I had to go to meetings. I was going to like 4 or 5 meetings a week, AA meetings a week, and I was sort of like, I really, really threw myself into, the things that, to a lot of people it's foreign, but I got myself a sponsor and I started working on the 12 steps of AA, which
someone told me the other day to read the book.
On another level.
Even like
on another level.
Someone who knows me relatively well, knows I've got a very addictive personality, knows me and knows the truth.
Life-saving.
Yeah.
Life-saving.
The book is for anyone.
Really. Life-saving.
That's the little blue.
Yeah.
Little blue one.
Yeah. If anyone said to me, like, what is the change of your life and how did you go from being this complete fuck up to where you are now, it's through this 12 steps.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. Like, if I told you my lifestyle back then, I would drink 10 Red Bulls a day. I'd have McDonald's 4 times a day. This was when I was 19.
Wow.
I'd have like 4 McDonald's a day. Like, yeah, I didn't drink any water. I just ate shit, and I smoked 40 cigarettes every day.
From 19,
from the age of 12 to 19, that was my lifestyle. And it was up until I really did the 12 steps, and I sort of started looking at myself, and that's what the whole 12 steps is, looking in at yourself.
Yeah.
and righting your wrongs, basically. And just became a different person. I haven't had a Red Bull for over 10 years. I haven't smoked for over 10 years. I haven't had a McDonald's for over 10 years. They're my three things.
Oh, you don't go near?
I'd never go near them. I'd never go to McDonald's ever again. I'd never go to have another Red Bull. But because that's like, when I think about those three things, that's like, it just brings back pain.
Really?
Yeah. So they're like I need stability in my life. I need structure. I had no structure as a kid. I've got structure. I wake up, I go on a walk, go to work, go to the gym, come home. Yeah, I've got structure now. For someone with ADHD and addiction, if you don't have structure, you may as well just be you're just fucked.
Yeah,
you're fucked. So starting this company, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a sense of belief, and it was the first time ever I was like, "Fuck, I can do this." We started building an incredible business where it went from like the first event where it was like 1,000 people to doing events with like 6,000-7,000 people.
Wow.
Becoming an actual part of culture in the underground sort of like electronic and grime scene.
Did you become addicted to it?
Addicted to it, like obsessed. I loved the buzz of it all. I was just alive.
First time building something from scratch and building your first business, what was the hardest point at that point?
Well, because I was so young and I had no responsibility at all. Like, it was just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, honestly, looking back now, like, we had this tiny office, the whole thing was graffitied, we were living like kings in like this shithole. And like, it was just crazy.
Do you know what, the early days of the first building of the first thing, I think are the best.
Crazy.
And I think that anyone that's building anything right now and they're like I started when I was 17. 17 to 19 was the best. And I don't think it will ever be that good.
I remember saying to myself, this is it forever. Yeah, like, this is me.
Yeah.
This is my company forever.
Yeah.
And then it went to shit.
So what happened? What happened with it?
So,
because you had what, 3 years?
Yeah, it got about 2 years. It got huge. But the problem with the under 18 scene is that there were more laws coming in around like what was happening at these events, and even businesses like ours that were trying to make sure that there weren't any drugs at an under 18 event and stuff like that. We would do our absolute everything, but the venues
to you as a
huge. I mean, because of me, because of everything. Yeah, 100%. But there were things happening, like you saw what happened at Fabric, it got closed down, and all these types of things. There was a lot more limelight that was sort of like shed onto it, and one other company got shut down because of it.
Not yours,
not ours. Another company, and then my brother got ill, and that was in it. And
so sorry to interrupt you again, but your mum was ill when you were 18.
Yeah, so my mum had cancer quite a few times. Actually, like 15, and then she got it when I came out of rehab, and then a few times later.
And then your brother,
my brother, my grandma, a lot of people around me, and this was all within like this 10-year period, and. Heartbreak's another one as well. But it was in relationships and a lot of that. It's weird. Heartbreak hurts more than all the other things. It's like all of these emotions running wild, and all these learnings that and doing it sober as well, and sort of bottling it all up. You can
only deal with one thing at a time.
Exactly.
And that's one thing I find with kind of. I think we think in similar ways, just from that chemistry thing of ADHD, but. I can't deal with 3 or 4 big problems at the same time.
And I have, yeah.
And that's a challenge for me as a founder and as a business owner, trying to do that. That's
exactly
my biggest thing.
Yeah.
But in that situation, you must have been dealing with 10, 20 different things.
It was horrible. And I also I had something as a kid where there was something that I wasn't involved with, that I just happened to be in the middle of, and I was in court for 2 years, and that was from the age of basically like 17, it was like 16 to 19 as well, that I sort of just wrong place, wrong time.
Was this when you were drinking?
It actually wasn't, no. It was after, actually. But it was just like all these things that were sort of happening that I just shit that I got myself into, really. And I needed to really sort of turn my life around. And I didn't think that I could, with everything sort of going on. But for me, it just felt like one after the other. And every time I was like, oh my God, there's nothing happening, another thing would happen. And it was just always like the same thing. And it was the same pattern. I look back now, and I don't sort of regret any of it because I've navigated myself to become the person I am. But that might have not have happened. Do you know what I mean? I could have gone down a completely different route, and I wouldn't be here. So I'm lucky, and with High Frequency, with the business, we did everything we could. Then my brother got ill. I had to take a bit of time off. I wasn't in the right headspace, and this law basically came in that a lot of venues in the country couldn't do under 18 events anymore. So the business just fizzled out, and that was my first experience of failure. Which, in all honesty, it put me in hospital after that. With everything with my brother, I was going through a heartbreak, the business failing. I thought this was it. I thought that was it. That was my calling. That was my purpose, and it's all gone. And it basically just felt like I was in the Truman Show, and there was literally someone that was using me as a fucking puppet, basically, and just stabbing me in the heart of like, how much can we put this kid through? How much can we put him through? And just felt like the world wasn't on my side.
But you took a lot more than most people can.
I took a lot more. I became heartless after that. Like, I was like a rock. I was like a stone. Like, I just didn't have any emotion anymore. It was like I was this broken kid who just, you could say anything to me, it wouldn't even affect me. It got to a point where the next time my mum got ill, I didn't even tell anyone. People found out. I just got to a place where it was like, this is just normal now. Just like, who really gives a shit? And it was just difficult. But what I didn't realise that was happening, which, when we come into CanO, is that all of these were learning curves, and all of these were like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And if you fucking strike me down, I'm going to get back up. And I think that's what I'm super proud of. Like, I remember looking at my dad when my brother was ill and thinking like all the shit that he had to go through, and just having the utmost respect for him, because I was sort of like, fuck, that's the dad I want to be, and I'm about to have a kid, as I said to you, like, congrats. Looking at my, like, I want to be that person. And it's like, no money in the world can make I've always been driven to be successful, but I actually am more passionate about being a good person over money. Like, I want to die with people. I want to die as a person who's done good.
You want people at your funeral, not an expensive headstone, basically.
Yeah, but even if I want people to love me for what I've achieved from a help. But a friend of mine said to me not long ago, like, what do you think we're actually here for? Well, what is the purpose of life? It's a very deep question. It's like one of those like late night.
Do you know
deep
what?
questions.
I ask myself that frequently.
Yeah,
it's a weird one for me.
Yeah,
I always sit with it for a long period of time, especially personally, but also with other people.
Yeah,
and everyone's got a different perspective. What was yours?
No, mine's just adding to life, like adding to just doing good. Like, when I walked into my first AA meetings, I've got a saying that strangers saved my life. Yeah, these people, they're not getting paid. Okay.
Yeah. We're
sitting around a room on a Tuesday evening in a church hall as addicts. That's not the most fun thing that you want to do on your. But people are there not only to help themselves but to help others. And when my brother was ill, and when all these things were happening, these people looked after me more than the closest people in my life. Like, and that's what I've learned, is that that's the person I am. I have people coming to me left, right and centre being like, help me, I don't know what to do, whether it's an addiction or an ADHD thing. And I did a post on LinkedIn once. I got 760 messages, and I replied to every single one of them within 24 hours.
Fair play.
My purpose in life is to help as many people as I can. CanO Water is a huge part of that. One of many things that I want to do to help. But for me, there's a lot of people that are in a bad place out there, and they're suffering silently. And if I can help someone not have to go through, because what I went, I have this thing in my head. I'm passionate about helping young kids from the age of 12 to 16, 17, because they go from this age where they just don't think about anything into this world of hormones where they have to be something, or and if they don't get the grades, or if they don't get this, it's like that time in life is so depressing and so scary that if you are not the perfect candidate in the world of academia or whatever, what did you do? And for someone like me, if I can help people like me, then, and it is that age, and sort of give them a bit of hope. That's my real purpose in life. And I think that you only learn that purpose if you go through enough to find that purpose.
And everything you just said, I definitely resonate with, but I also think it's because you have experienced it. You're 100% true experience. And with the AA stuff, with the helping of the younger people, you've gone through it.
100%.
You're not, and this is sometimes where, I will always have this thing where I don't listen to people's opinions and I don't want to take their advice.
Yeah.
It's just something I've always lived by, and it really sits with me.
Yeah.
Because so many people have got opinions and advice, but I only care if you've lived it.
100%.
And I think for
completely
you,
agree.
You've lived through 10, 12 years of horrible. That doesn't happen to most people in their whole lifetime, let alone in their teenage years.
For sure.
So, it teaches you so much. But I think there is this thing around the support and the advice when you've been through it yourself. It's so powerful.
100%.
It's so powerful. And I guess for you, you're probably in a weird way living in that place where you want to work with the younger generation because you didn't have anyone around when you were there.
100%. And it's lonely. We're in a very, very saturated world where everyone wants to be, whether it's like a get rich quick scheme or an influencer or you're on social media and everyone looks like they've got the best life ever, but behind closed doors it ain't. It's really, really scary out there. And it's who do you actually believe? You just said it yourself. You could be looking at someone on Instagram thinking that they've got the best life ever, and it's oh my God, they've been through it. But it's it's also that if you flip the script, it's have they? It's you don't know what to. I feel like we're in a world where you just don't know what to believe.
I think there's my personal opinion on this is that there's lots of different ways that greed moves around.
Yeah.
And I think that human beings are incredibly greedy, and we always want more, and we always want that extra hit of that, that extra hit of this. And I think that everyone always thinks the grass is always greener, but if you can't appreciate what you do have.
Have you ever seen a film called Pay It Forward?
No.
It's a really good film. It's about this kid who does a school project, and he does 3 good things for 3 people, and then those 3 people have to do 3 things for 3 people, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows.
Yeah.
That is what AA basically really is.
Yeah.
And that, I think that if every single person lived by that, I really think it would be a better place. And I do agree. I think that greed is enormous, but for me, it's it's so toxic and it can take over your body. I'm very lucky that my dad is my dad's the loveliest man you could ever meet, and he's just my complete and utter inspiration in life. And he's just he's gone out of his way to protect us, and he could be so much richer when it comes to from a financial perspective, but he's richer in another perspective that he's sorted out his whole family from just fucked to where we are now. He's the richest person I know in that respect.
Is he one of the people that got you through those 12 years? Huge
inspiration. And he bought me my first as I said, my first decks. He's invested in me, not even from a money perspective. He's invested his time to be there for me. That's everything. Money is in some aspect the root of all evil, I believe, if used wrong. And if used right can be, an incredible tool. But I think that we can do a lot with no money, if that makes sense. We can actually do good and help people, and also enhance growth and help people not make the same mistakes that we've made, really. Which, if I spoke to people, actually, you know what? If I think about what I said to you before about my first time in rehab, I was scared that these people had to die for me to realise that I don't want to be that person. They saved me in a way, if you think about it, because and they were the people that sort of, I didn't pay them. It wasn't a psychiatrist or anything. This was a person that, from their own experiences, were you don't want this.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, look, you had a really rough time up until you were 22, and then it all changed.
then it all changed.
And look at you now.
Look at me now.
So 22, CanO water, it comes around. I know a lot of people might have heard the story of how it started, and the trips to Bali and Indonesia and seeing the plastic on the sort of sand.
Of course.
The question I want to ask you is, I feel like you and the other guys might have had a few options at that time. You were DJing, the guys were doing other things as well.
Yeah.
Why was it important to you to start CanO water?
In all honesty, I don't think it was before the trip. I think that it was, and this is why it's so pure and authentic. And it's not like we're sitting there like trying to come up with ideas, and we've manufactured some idea that's come out of nowhere because we see a niche in the market.
Yeah.
We went on a trip to Thailand, lads' holiday, with no expectation of coming back with an idea. And basically just came across loads of plastic bottles on a beach, basically, and just sort of didn't understand how brands like your Danones and your Coca-Colas were sort of allowing that to happen. An article came out in the Guardian the other day. It was basically titled "They've Lied," and underneath it was like, plastic producers have known for 30 years of what they're doing to the planet. Like,
probably have, yeah.
They have, yeah. We've that's what we saw, and they've just sort of been letting it happen. And it's crazy, actually. I went to the Museum of Brands, which is only down the road, the other day. And it basically shows like the Victorian times, the Edwardian times, all the way up to now. And everything back then was all aluminium and all glass and paper.
Yeah.
Mad. And then you get to like the 1950s and 60s and it all just transfers into plastic. You just see like this takeover of plastic. And it's crazy and scary. And through doing serious amounts of research, we basically just saw that like all these environmentalists have been talking about this for years and no one's been listening to them.
Yeah.
They just think they're mad. No one really, like, these companies are hiding it. And we were like, what can we do? We're not scientists. We can't just create a material that just disappears into thin air. We don't really, there's glass, which is recyclable, but it's very heavy. And can glass really go up against plastic? Can't really, because it smashes and there's a lot of logistical issues. You've got Tetra Pak, which might look recyclable, the cartons, but actually that's even worse than plastic.
Is that because of the film?
It's filmed, it's basically got like aluminium, paper and plastic meshed into it. So it's a nightmare to recycle.
Frankenstein,
yeah. And then aluminium, which has been around since the 1800s, is the most recyclable material on the planet. So when you recycle a can, it will always come back as another can. So 75% of aluminium that was produced in the 1800s is just still in circulation. So this can, in 60 days after I recycle it, could just become a Red Bull can. And then it could become a Coke can. And then it can become a Fanta. It can become anything. Just keep going forever.
Yeah.
Whereas when you recycle a plastic bottle, it might get recycled a few times. It probably will never become a plastic bottle again. It might become a shoelace or a park bench, but how many of those do we need? And it basically just reaches the end of its life cycle. It will never come back as what it was intended to become.
Yeah.
Then it just basically ends up in landfill and going in the ocean. And however much the manufacturers protect themselves and say like we're doing this, and by 2030 we're doing this, it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So we were like, has anyone put water in a can? No one had ever put water in a can. And I think one of the main reasons why, and this is what the main thing about ADHD, I think because everyone would think of every single hurdle of why you can't put water in a can, and every single drinks industry expert would be like, no, you can't do it. You can't see the water. You can't close the can. It's going to taste like shit. All of these things, no one will buy a can of water. But our minds and our creative sort of mentality in the ADHD sort of head was like, nah, we're going to make this happen.
All three of you got ADHD?
No, I mean, debatable, but we've all got different sort of creative brains.
Yeah.
And we were just like, we're going to make this happen. And no one is going to tell us that we can't. So we're going to make this happen and we're going to go on a journey. And, Perry, my other co-founder, who's an incredible designer, sort of sent us over like the first render. And we were just like, this is it. This is just, it didn't look much different to this. And it just was like, this is it. Like, this is amazing. And we started the business in 2016 when we basically got an order from Selfridges and London Fashion Week. Selfridges are basically the strangest thing ever. We sent them an email and we sent them an email on the week that they decided to be the first retailer in the world to remove plastic from their fridges, which is like just the maddest. I mean, the maddest thing ever. Could have been a year before, it would have been too early, year late, too late. It's just that week.
It happens.
Mad.
That happens. I can understand the mission and the opportunity, but why did you think it was a good idea yourself? Why did you want to do it for you?
Because I loved it. And this is the thing with me, is that with like this brain that I've got, I can only give it 1,000% if I love something, like DJing.
Yeah,
I give everything to DJing. Like I love DJing. When I'm DJing, I'm there. Yeah, I'm actually not there. I'm in like another world. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's crazy, and I love it. And I always chase that same experience, that same like dopamine thing. And I think that when we came out with the idea and when we saw the brand and the name CanO Water, you know, that was just like, it was like angels singing. Sense. It really was, because it was like, that's the name. This is the brand. And do you know what? I just saw this vision of just falling in love with this and being able to go and market it. And I think that we definitely thought it would be a lot easier than it was. 100%, like everyone.
Yeah. Did you think it gave you a purpose?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. I'm always searching for purpose. Mm-hmm. And this was my purpose. And what I loved about it is I was part of the problem before, okay? Yeah. I was part of the problem. Didn't care about the environment. It wasn't part of my agenda in life. You know, when I grew up, you didn't really see any bad plastic pollution. But then when I did research, I started to actually care. And I started to actually feel bad for these environmentalists that were basically just telling people, like, I remember I was in my first year at CanO, I was sampling at Whole Foods in Kensington. And this woman came over to me and asked for my autograph. And I was like, what? She was like, this like 60-year-old woman. And I was like, why do you want my autograph? She was like, because I've been talking about plastic pollution for 40 years. No one's listened to me. Wow. She was like, you are a legend. You have actually got people to hear you. Do you know what I mean? Like, got powerful moments like that, where like people only wanted to listen to like, people didn't want to listen, to environmentalists.
Because one thing I've seen you talk about a lot is the people that told you couldn't do it. Now, me as an individual, a lot of people told me I could do certain things, and that is one of my drivers. I'm a very petty individual. Someone says it's not going to happen.
I'm the same.
I feel that that's a motivator for me. Those early rejections, how big did they really get? Was everyone just like, not a chance?
It was, I mean, my whole life has been rejection. My whole life. When it comes to sort of like, you can't do this, how are you ever going to make money from this, how are you going to do this? So I have always defied every norm, really, whether it be through like DJing, because I did very well there, and you know, even with the events companies, like everyone around me is like, how are you going to make money from that, how are you going to make money from that? And even though it didn't last, I still built something. In the early days of CanO, when we all left our jobs, I was actually at the time working at like a local events company after High Frequency, and I was DJing as well. Every single person, when we told them about CanO Water, thought that we were crazy. Like my sister, I remember, she's going to hate me saying this, but she'll admit it. I remember like coming home one day and hearing her talking to her friend, and like her friend was like, so what's Josh up to? And I heard her literally say like, he's gone mad. He's creating this canned water brand. Like, who on earth would ever buy cans of water? And I remember hearing that and being like really low about it.
Did you ever believe any of this stuff?
Say again?
Did you ever believe any of it?
Yeah, I did believe in it, and I did think it could go wrong, but I didn't listen to it. So I believed it, but I didn't listen to it. And I remember like there were local people who would say to my dad, like, it's stupid and this and that. Yeah, and my dad would come back and he'd just be like, someone said this, but like, fuck them. You're going to make it work. And yeah, we were very fortunate that we got some investment from some sort of like local angel investors that had invested, that had basically sold a business, and they believed in us. And that sort of put a lot of excitement through our veins of like, if they believe in us, then we can do this. And, you know, the main thing really was ignoring that side of things and just doing what we believe, which is what I'm so proud about, because so many brands copy CanO water now, but we never copy anyone else. Like I have this thing that I say around like innovators and copycats. You've got the innovators; they're the first to do everything. They're the ones that don't copy anyone. They might take inspiration and they'll credit that, but they are coming up with the ideas in their head, and they are like the pioneers. And they can't copy people because it's not within their DNA. Yeah. And these people are super creative, and super sort of like, the reason they can't copy people is they actually feel sick at the thought of copying someone else. Yeah. It's their own footprint and their own sort of signature on everything. And then there's copycats. Now, these people, they just copy everyone, okay? And they're waiting for the innovator to make their next move, okay, to copy them. They're always slower because they're not thinking. They might be more successful and they might be bigger, but they haven't got that thinking. The hard thing about being the innovator is that it can be really draining because you're the one that's always coming up with the ideas and then everyone copies you. But the rewarding side of things is that you've done something yourself and it's authentic, and there's no better feeling. And I first got it as a DJ, where like you'll create a mix and you'll see everyone go mad, okay? And you'll have 10,000 people in front of you and you'll just look out there and you'll be like, fuck, I did that, you know? And I can imagine, you know, like brand, like we get it when we do like a campaign, like the Wimbledon thing, or like in the early days, we'll do something and people will be talking about it. And it's like this feeling, I'm obsessed with that feeling of like something that we came up with. Impact. So kind of long story short, like we didn't care about what people said because we just wanted to, we just wanted to be that innovator, and we wanted to be the people that, you know, in 5 years' time, everyone was referring to. And we did that, you know? Yeah.
And you spoke a little bit about raising money, and I'm not going to obviously ask you the complexities of that, but obviously one very notable investor is Ricky Gervais that you kind of got on board. Yeah. And I know you've had a few others as well kind of come in that way. How did that even happen?
So we were introduced to Ricky, and you know, what I love about him, and I went to go see him recently, is that he actually cares. I think that's super important because we actually care. You know, I don't drink out of plastic. I haven't for the past 8 years. It's very at all.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'll die before I drink out of plastic. And listen, sometimes it's very hard, and that's why we exist.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But I will. It's funny. I'll go to Joe the Juice. And I will be that awkward guy now that just turns around and goes, yeah, can you put it in a paper cup? And they'll look at me like, why? And I'll be like, yeah, just, I'll never say who I am, but I'll just be like, yeah, I just don't drink out of plastic. And then they'll respect it. They'll have massive admiration for it. Yeah. But it's like, a lot of people would find that awkward to do, and they just wouldn't do it. And I think what I love about Ricky is that he's an animal lover and he cares about the planet. You know, and he might make jokes about it, and he might be the very, very crude person, but the person that he is he actually cares, and he puts his money into the right things.
He's about purpose as well, right?
All about purpose. And you know, even we've never asked him to share anything. He does it off of his own back. You know, he's got like 15 million followers on Twitter. People can pay a lot of money for, and he actually put something out recently. It was like, if you see a can of water out and about, send me a picture. And there were hundreds of replies. I mean, it could have gone horribly wrong, but thank God it didn't. But the CanO gods were out there, but like people were just sending like picture after picture, which was just, for me as a founder, like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better feeling, right? It feels like that feeling of making impact is really important.
Exactly, but then at the same time, you can't let that get to your head ever. You can never let it get to your head, because the second that you think that you're a success, you're fucked. Yeah. Like that is the biggest. Until you've sold your business and you've got nothing to do with it, you've got to just keep pounding away. Yeah, because what I've realized is that the copycats are just they're here. They're here and they're coming for you.
They're ready to pounce.
Like they are literally coming for
you. And obviously with Ricky, he's someone that's kind of been involved in the business very publicly, but as a brand, as a new brand, and you're a disruptor brand, right? Do you kind of class yourself as that?
Yeah.
Right saying?
Hijackers,
nice. You've managed to get such a variety of kind of influence and proper influence. Like F1, big F1 fan. So like I've seen you thousands of times. Like obviously in the music scene, there's a lot there in the kind of social scene, in TikTok and YouTube and stuff. Has that happened naturally? Because I reckon there's a few people sat here watching brands being like, how much does that cost? Is it just happen naturally?
We have been so fortunate. We haven't paid for any of that, like nothing. And I think that I was actually thinking about this the other day. I just don't we have a CanO Wall of Fame in the office. Like anyone from Dua Lipa, Bill Gates, Drake,
Well, I've had
the Kardashians. I've got the cans, like Daniel Ricciardo, obviously. All of these people.
Helmets behind me.
There you go. So it's mad, and it's all been, we call it accidental ambassadors. Like we even put it in their hands. Yeah. It's just been in the right place, and it looks good. And I think that
is it brand? Is that what it is?
I think it's brand. I think it's two things. I think the sustainability angle got us in there, and the brand got us picked up. Yeah. And I think that if that's where, like, if you have a shit brand, it can be really, really tough, and you have to pay a lot of money. But if it naturally just fits into your day and that person, and it's difficult for us because at first people thought, and still do, you know, people are like, what is it? Is it a beer? Is it an energy drink? What is it?
Was that on purpose though?
No, that's been a barrier to entry, if anything. Really? Yeah, because
obviously you've got a competitor in the US, Liquid Death, who obviously have really leaned into that
100%
a lot, and they wanted it. Yeah, did they model it around Guinness at one point?
I think that their thing was like it's a beer, but it isn't a beer.
And it was all over podcasts and all that kind of thing.
But like they are going to market it like that, aren't they? Because they're in a can, and you know. But I think that is a big barrier to entry. You don't think when you buy a bottle of water. It's an impulse buy. You need water. You get it. Some people love their brand. Some people just go for whatever's on the shelf and what's there. You know, we have to stand out more than those brands, and it's virtually impossible to when you don't have the money. So how do you do it? You get into the right places, and you basically try and, you know, I think the sustainability thing for us was super important. We were 3 months from going bankrupt in 2018. Everything was sort of like, we were building a brand. We brought in an MD. He was like, you've got a brand, but you're making no money and you're running out of money. So, you know, it's great that you've got people holding your product, but what now? And, you know, we fell into the trap of just being very London centric and getting the same accounts that everyone gets, like the Whole Foods and Selfridges, which are nice to have, but don't make a lot of money. You need, you know, to get to make money, you need everything. You need the F1s, you need the universities, you need the hotels, you need the airlines, you need everything. You need scale, you need scope.
It's like full distribution across everything.
And we didn't have that. So what we basically did was we had 3 months to live, and we basically put our whole time and energy into building this distribution model, and no one wanted to listen to us. No one. Everyone was just like, yeah, you've called us. Sat down with one of the owners of one of the biggest brands in the country, who literally laughed us out of the room. He was like, you're never going to get to Tesco. You've got a good looking product.
Was that a brand in your space?
No, not in water, but it's one of the biggest brands in the country. Yeah. And he was just like, and it was sad because he's a big entrepreneur as well, one of the biggest entrepreneurial brands. And he basically just said, I just don't think it's going to work, guys. And it was a massive blow. You know, that's one where it's hard to ignore.
It is, because again, back to what I said before, if you want their opinion, you're going to really,
of course,
it's going to hit hard.
And
that's where that
if you ask for it,
you know, I don't listen to the crap. And then if you do want to listen to it, it's
100%.
Like, it's like a dagger, right?
And it's good to hear it.
Didn't stop you though.
Didn't stop me, and I got invited to their head office 6 months ago to tell all their creative and marketing team how to build an organic brand, which is quite funny. But on the last month of the 3 months, David Attenborough did Blue Planet, and we went from being the most stupid idea and just a fad to basically selling 12 million cans in 2019, which was just...
What do you mean? What happened with David Attenborough?
He was on Blue Planet. Yeah. He talked about plastic pollution. And there was an episode of a whale that was basically, that it had died, and its child was basically crying in the water, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And everyone basically went from, oh my God, we can't sell plastic anymore, and started going on the same journey that we had gone when we first started the brand. And they all landed at the same thing. Aluminium is better than plastic.
And that was it.
And that was the first time ever where it was like, and I felt that feeling that I felt with High Frequency of like, okay, wow, we've got something here. And, you know, it all went great. 2019, best year, was just amazing. And then COVID and everything just went to shit, basically. Like every brand in our space.
Yeah.
We'd built the most incredible distribution and then it all just turned off overnight. So the year of like growth just slowed down enormously, but it helped us in a way because we were running like before we could walk, really.
I was going to say, because I think in kind of talking off camera, you were speaking about growing really fast and how that changed a lot of the business and the way it was set up and things like that. Was that around that time?
It was around that time, and we were just growing and growing and growing. But we were still a tiny team, like 4 of us, like, which is crazy. And the burnout was horrendous. You know, we were all arguing about things because it was all like sleepless nights and just fear of like, when you go from nothing to something, you're petrified of losing everything. And like, because we had nothing before and now we had something, it's like, how do you keep it? So we just did everything in our power. But 2020 just, as I said, like, just hit us horrendously. And that was another time in my life where, as a founder, like, and as a human, I had to use the tools that I used as a kid that I'd learned, you know, where I actually was, I wouldn't say I was okay, but I was better than I would have been had I never have gone through all the things that, as a kid.
You were still moving forward.
Yeah. I went through a period in COVID where I was so depressed because I wasn't DJing. I just bought a flat as well, my first flat, which I was so proud of. And I was in there like by myself and like really, really low. And I started this thing in COVID with a friend of mine where we basically started doing Zoom meetings with anyone that wanted to join. And every week there was a new speaker. And it was called In Conversation With. And the reason I started it is because, and I would never do this ever, but I put up an Instagram story basically just saying that I felt like shit. And does anyone else feel like shit? And if so, let me know and I'll create something. And I probably toyed on putting that Instagram story out there for about 4 months because I thought it was the cringiest thing ever. And I basically just said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I got 250 messages in 24 hours. It's
interesting that you cared so much.
I did.
Do you not find? Like, because
I've
been through so much.
I know, I do care. I do care.
Everyone does. But like, it's interesting that you do. Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree. I do.
You've literally fought off every demon possible.
I know.
And it's
There's still a demon. There's still a demon. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I posted it and I got 250 messages of people being like, please, 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 please do something. People that you would expect to be fine weren't, you know, and a guy that I knew very, very well growing up unfortunately took his life in COVID, and he was someone that I never in a million years thought that would, unfortunately. And it opened my eyes a lot of that don't underestimate like someone, like don't think that someone is fine type of thing.
I think humans are just really good at hiding a lot.
100%. And do you know what? That's why I'm so open. I like making people vulnerable. I like to do it. And the reason I like to do it is because the amount of times where I've been open has enabled people to become vulnerable and open up to me. And then they'll message me being like, I'm so fucking happy I spoke to you because I'm living in deep, deep, deep depression and I won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And we did it for about 6 or 7 weeks. We had like hundreds of people join this Zoom, and it was like, it got me out of a really big hole in COVID and it brought me back to like reality. And
other people.
Yeah. And I loved that. And it brought, it's a purpose. I didn't have my CanO purpose.
Yeah.
And we worked harder in COVID than we'd ever worked before to keep the company afloat.
Yeah.
But like, we had to, as founders, we had to like cut our salaries. We went from like never having a salary to like having a salary to like not having a thing. It was just
like
crazy. And like just looking after the team, the little team that we had, and just keeping the business going. And then, you know, we came out of COVID and we gave it our all. And we built the business back up, which wasn't easy, and competition was coming in thick and fast, but COVID gave us the time to sort of plan our attack. Which, we did a very, very good job of that. And, the business from there has had steady growth.
And what was at that point, in COVID, was there a time where the three of you were like, maybe it's not going to survive?
Yeah, 100%.
And
every day.
What kept you going through that? Was it the rest? Because obviously there's you and two other.
Yeah.
So
I think having each other, really.
Yeah.
I think having each other, and also like leaning on the right people. I believe that people have to lean on people in life. For me, whether that be like friends or the people from recovery in AA, or like my wife, who is like an incredible person, who inspires me every day. I think it's super important to lean on people. So we just sort of lent on each other, really.
Yeah.
And if one of us was down, the other one would help bring him back up.
Yeah.
I'm a big optimist now. Like I am, even if things are shit, I try and be as optimistic. I'm not always an optimist. I have to bring myself back to reality. But I think that I'm a good person when things are tough. Yeah. Because of what I've gone through. So I like to sort of be like, listen, we're going to be all right. We're going to be okay. Let's come together. I wouldn't say I've always, but I'd like to think that I'm a good leader now. I never saw myself as a leader. I saw myself as, as a nothing.
Yeah.
Now what I'm very, very, very good at is I'm a problem solver. And I don't believe that anything is impossible. So if someone in my team's like, I don't know how we're going to get from A to B, like, I will get there.
There's always a way.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've we've been at events and one of my staff's come over and been like, someone's just come over and said they hate canned water and it's the worst thing ever. And after half an hour, that person is like obsessed with canned water. I'll be like, where is he? Show me him. And like, we've gone over there and it's funny the way that the mind works, because most people, they'll say that, but they've actually never really had canned water. They just think it. Right. But they've said that they don't like canned water. And then they'll try canned water and they're like, oh my God, it's water. Thank you. Then we go on to the brand. So it's all about those stepping stones, I think. And if it's like my recovery, if I say to myself, I'm never ever going to drink ever again, my whole mind just fucking explodes.
Yeah.
But if I say, I'm not going to drink today, and it's one day at a time, it's like, I just need to get through today. And then tomorrow's another day. And I think it's the same in business. It's like, yeah, you have to plan for the future and whatever, but I've just got to do what I've got to do today. And I can't control what isn't controllable, and I can't project into the future and things that haven't happened.
So true. So where is CanO Water today?
So
after everything, after all the chaos.
There's still chaos. No, we've got some really great things going on. We've just had about to close our best year yet. We've had a really good year. We've got some really good people in the business. Just our chairman, who is the ex-president of Heineken, who is an incredible guy. We've got as I said, we've got investors like Ricky Gervais, Dave the rapper, the Sidemen, Jess Glynn, Maverick Sabre the singer,
amazing,
Mark Webber, the F1 guy,
really,
Aussie guy, Paul McGinley, the golfer, Ryder Cup. So we've got some really great people that have come into this round. For us, it's just keep growing, keep being ourselves, keep being the innovator. Don't become the copycat. Don't bottle it, which is obviously written on our cans, which is really a play on the three of us as well, just as friends and as founders. And it's even away from the brand, like everything that I stand for in my life, I haven't bottled it. I used to bottle it as a kid. Everything was bottled up. Now, people can't stop me from talking. And America's a big one for us. So try and, take the brand over to California and really introduce the people out there to CanO Water and what it's all about.
Yeah. To get to today, you've obviously, as we've heard for the last bit of time, you've gone through a lot, and to build CanO Water to where it is, you've also had to deal with a lot of COVID and all these other variables. What do you think it really takes to build a brand like CanO Water?
I think it takes a lot of mistakes, and I think it takes a lot of resilience. You've got to be really, really thick-skinned.
You are the poster boy for resilience.
Thank you. Thank you. I have seen I've seen perfect dreams and perfect outcomes, and a lot of the time there is help behind that. Like, we haven't had any help, and if you don't have help, and if you don't have, you know, like the big platform behind you to sort of push you and bolster you into that direction, like, you have to accept that you're going to make a lot of mistakes and you're not going to make the right decisions, but you've got to learn from those mistakes, and you've also got to get through the night. You know, that's a really big thing. You've got to get through the night. I've had sleepless nights where I haven't been able to get through the night because I'm worrying about tomorrow. And like I just said before, like, there's a saying, false evidence appearing real, which is fear. That's, you just make it, like, fear is the enemy of moving forward, because you're just basically just making stuff up in your head of what could go wrong. And that resilience, and basically just like leaning on the right people and learning from the right people, and also, like, everyone wants to be this person that they see, but what about just becoming your person? I want to be my own person. I don't need to be, you know, like, I might look up to certain individuals, but, like, I just want to be me and love me.
That's really powerful. And what do you think that building a brand takes from you? Because you just spoke a lot about what you've got to give. And I think that's really, like, deep in the way of a lot of people think that building a brand like CanO Water just is a load of money, you chuck it at it and it happens. And Ricky Gervais invests in you, cool. But on the other side of that, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that, as you mentioned. But what does a brand like this take from you as an individual?
A lot of time and energy, a lot of sort of focus. Building a business versus building a brand is two completely separate things. Like, building a household brand is extremely difficult. It really, really is. Especially when you've got everyone trying to take you out, you know. I could tell you some of the maddest stories ever where, you know, big companies and big people have completely just gone out of their way to remove CanO Water from certain places. Like, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. And, you know, when you start to take people's market share, they'll do everything in their power to make sure that you don't. And I just think it takes a lot of time and energy, a lot of thinking. You know, as I said, if you're the innovator, like, and you're the pioneer, like, you've got to move fast, and you've got to. I do believe that if you have a shit product or a shit brand, it's really, really tough.
It comes out at some point.
And yeah, exactly. And sometimes, you know, you have to find out the hard way. And, you know, I believe that CanO Water is an incredible product, and I think there's so much more scope. But we're not big enough to know that yet, you know. And I think that's, like, I live with that every day, and so do we all. But we're still here for a reason, and our reason is our why, which is to remove as much plastic as possible from the oceans. And if we have to do everything in our power to do that, and we sacrifice our time and our energy, then so be it.
Well, Josh, mate, you've achieved so much. It's been so nice to talk to you, and just congrats, because, like, you know, I knew a bit about you before this, but, like, fucking hell, you've gone through it, and you should be super proud of what you and the guys have built. And I'm really excited to see the next thing, because who knew water could be so interesting?
100%.
But thanks for coming down. Appreciate the time, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you very much.
It's going to be something.
Thank you.